If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome back to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout. Thanks for tuning in to another episode where we find out why writers are writing, what they're writing, and how you can start writing your story too. Today, I have a extremely talented writer coming on the show. He has not only written a play, but he also performs his play. And I'm going to tell you about this actor, writer, and creator of a national touring show that he stars in because I am just so impressed with it. He has a solo play called Unreconciled, and it has been seen in theaters across the United States from Los Angeles to West Springfield, Massachusetts. He is the former program developer at the Provincetown Theater in Cape Cod, and I'm in Massachusetts, so it's kind of nice to know that he's close to home. He's a very talented actor I have seen in multiple plays at the Majestic Theater in my hometown, and his name is Jay Sefton. And he has performed all over the country in a lot of different plays. So we're going to talk to him about those plays. But most importantly, we're going to talk to him about what this Unreconciled solo play is all about. So let's welcome to the show, Jay Sefton.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
This is great. And you're actually living here in Massachusetts.
Yes, I live in East Hampton.
And you're traveling the entire country. You've made a lot of miles.
Yeah, it's been almost 2 solid years of, with some breaks in between, but 2 solid years. It first went on stage in July of 2023, and we've been all over the place.
Where did you first go on stage?
We did a workshop production at Chester Theater Company in Chester, Massachusetts. Okay. And so that was 2 nights. And then, went around mostly in this neighborhood doing more workshops. And then Chester brought it back last summer to be in their summer season. So the world premiere was at Chester Theater Company as well last summer. So
it's called Unreconciled. I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about what it's about, and then I have lots of questions for you.
So it is a solo show, and I play about 13, 14 characters, something along that. And it is an autobiographical story about being cast to play Jesus in an 8th grade passion play by a priest who was later defrocked for his abuse of the kids playing Jesus. So that's the plot, and it's really kind of a meditation on family and place and community, and so we do use a lot of humor. I know it's a heavy topic.
I would say it's a very heavy topic, but I think a lot of times when you have a heavy topic, if you bring in that humor, it allows it to be digestible.
Yes, you have to make it accessible. One of the things we set out to do, knowing that the topic can be difficult to talk about, is to create a complete piece of theater that, has people laughing as well. And yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a tough thing when you're talking about, priests and abuse.
Yes.
And it can be a very triggering thing for some people to go through, whether they've gone through it themselves or they know someone who has, or happen to have a friend who's a priest who got accused of it. Right. I mean, there's so many different angles on this. So it is a very heavy topic. Yeah. And, you're playing 13 different characters?
I think it's 13.
Yeah.
12. It's more than 12.
That's amazing. Oh, wait, there's 12 people at the Last Supper.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Interesting. So when did you start writing this show?
So the first time was early in January 2021.
Okay. Wow.
And I would get up 3 days at 6:30 in the morning and go down into the basement, and I was like, I'm just going to sit here. I don't know if anything will happen, but I'm going to sit here from 6:30 to 8:30, 3 days a week. And
did you know what you were writing at the time, or were you just...
I knew I was writing...
You had an idea for the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know it was going to be a show?
Yes.
So automatically you knew you were writing for the stage?
Yeah. I had done a solo show in 2008, and so I kind of knew the form a little bit, but I learned a lot over. So 2021 was when I started writing in January. Summer of 2023 when it first hit the stage, so it's almost 2.5 years.
That's really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really fast.
I know. Writers say it's. I don't consider myself I'm definitely not prolific. I've written a couple solo shows, couple op-eds and essays, but when I talk to real writers, they're like, that's fast.
That's fast track, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I produce a show for televised radio theater. I mean, and the guy who's written all these plays, some of them he's written 30 years ago, and they're just getting produced, you know. And I mean, I got a script for April Rain, and it's been a long time. So yeah, that you're on the fast track for that. So so you write it. You're sitting doing the dedicated, hours every morning, sitting there with the blank page, or just
courting the muse, saying, I'm doing my job, I'm here.
Yeah.
And seeing what descends. And there were a lot of, so many ideas.
Yeah, shelved.
Yeah, didn't make it in. The whole idea was to frame it to steal a section from the Brothers Karamazov and hang it on this. That's gone.
Never worked.
No.
And it's hard when you're pulling stuff out, but because I'm sure when you're writing it, you're like, oh my God, this is so great today.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, this is so great. And then you go back like a couple days later and you're like, that doesn't go here. Yeah.
I was so excited.
But it got your pen moving and it got it
Yes.
going. So you write it and then, you have to workshop it.
Uh-huh.
What's the anxiety like putting it to share with other people?
Well, I do want to say that about 6 months into the writing process, I did bring in a collaborator. I love collaborating. So it's co-written with Mark Basquill.
Okay.
And then we worked for however long.
How much did you have written already?
I had a lot of those ideas, but, I'd written a couple screenplays with people, and I love, having that thing of where you don't know whose idea was what after a while, that it starts to grow. And so him and I would work. So I had a bunch of writing, and I gave it all to him, and we would start working over Zoom every week, and we'd go away with things to work on.
Yeah, I love collaboration, and I've done some where I've even worked with a comedian to said, I need humor put in here.
Yeah.
Like, find a place to put humor in here, because like you're saying, when you have that tough subject, you got to lighten the mood somewhere. You know?
And the other thing that bringing Mark in was great for is Mark's a clinical psychologist, and early in his career he worked with male offenders. So he wrote. I don't want to give too much of it away. But
he could write from that perspective.
He wrote from And so I play Father Smith. I play the priest, and Mark wrote these monologues, which I don't think I could have written in quite the same way.
So I love it. Mark wrote the monologues. The whole play is a monologue, even though you have 13 characters with 13 probably different monologues. I mean, I have.
And there is scenes between them
going back and forth. Yeah. And you're just putting on a show at the Majestic Theater in West Springfield, and then where are you headed after that?
After that, we go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is kind of. I grew up in Philadelphia, and a lot of this is centered in Pennsylvania. And that is for the National Conference of SNAP, which is the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests.
Wow.
So I've been asked to perform at their national conference.
That's awesome.
And there's that. Then we'll be 3 weeks at a theater in Katuitt, Massachusetts, a weekend on Long Island, and then we've got an Ireland tour at the end of fall. We're going to hit 3
international.
cities.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're a trained actor. You did act. Were you acting before you started writing?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So you know how to write for an actor since you are an actor.
Yes.
So that's very helpful.
Yeah.
So I have a list of questions, but I have so many questions in my head that I want to know. Like, so when you finish writing the script, and you want it developed for the stage, how did you get that moving? Where did you go?
So
you can't just call your local theater and say, "Hey, I got the script, and let's put it on."
Yeah. It is, yes, it's this weird process of things popping in. So like the first time I read the thing out loud, it was just for Mark, and it was 2 hours and 45 minutes long, and we were like, I think we need to cut some stuff. And, it goes through this process of I read it from my wife, I would read sections. We had some friends over in the living room I would read it for, engage some reactions. And when we thought we had a solid first draft, we've got a couple friends that are in the area, Len Berkman and Joyce Berkman.
Len sounds familiar.
Len is a playwriting professor at Smith College and has been there since 1969, and he's an amazing person, as is his wife Joyce. And they said, why don't you come over and read it in our living room after brunch? And they invited James Barry, who had just taken over as artistic director at Chester. So we got done the reading, and he was like, will you do the mid-season workshop event? And so that was kind of how that thing got started, and that was in December of 2022, so we had about 6 months to
really get it ready.
To start.
Well,
that
for
point,
you to memorize
memorizing it, yes.
For you to memorize it, because I mean, your show's 80 minutes.
Yes.
And you're on stage. Do you have an intermission?
No.
So that's the thing. Is, you know, I produce a show also that's a solo show with Ken Harris, and you know, I said to him, I go, we need a water break.
Yes.
You need to write that in the script or something, right? Because
definitely.
I mean, you're just that the whole time, and I mean, you have to, you know, kind of wet your whistle and take that moment of, okay, let's keep going.
Yes.
But without losing your train of conversation.
Right.
Or script.
Yeah, and have it be where it kind of makes sense and make it seem like it's not written in.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah, that it's part of it.
Yeah.
Besides doing this and touring, you still perform in other shows.
I perform in other shows, and I'm also a mental health counselor, so that's my day job.
So your mental health counseling helps to keep you sane in all this writing?
Yeah, they're nice. They're good balances.
That's a good balance, because as a writer, I feel like we all need a mental health counselor to make sure that this is normal, because we're talking to, you know, 13, 15 different muses in our head.
Right.
And it's like, and then you're acting them out, so now you have this form of schizophrenia going on.
When I'm doing the memorizing or brushing up, I'll walk around East Hampton and just run the lines, which always looks
in
a
your
little
head.
weird.
Yeah,
when I do them out loud. It always looks a little weird.
Have you ever considered casting it with 13 actors?
It has been an idea that's been brought up recently.
Okay.
And so it's something that I'm interested in giving a shot, you know.
But you have to let go of it too.
Yeah, it'll be kind of a different project, I would imagine. Some scenes will probably stretch, and so I don't know what that even looks like, but I like the challenge of it, and I'm not particularly precious about, no, it has to be in this form. That's
really a good thing for a writer to have that openness.
Yeah.
Because I know some people are like, no, you can't change anything.
Right,
and,
right.
You know, and you know, we write from what we know, so I don't want to be asking you if you were abused from a clergyman, but, you know, what gave you this idea? What prompted you to come up with this idea?
It is autobiographical.
Okay.
So I play myself, and actually, part of the thing that made me want to write it, but one of the things that I was like, oh, I still have a VHS copy of the Passion play from 1985 that I played Jesus in.
Oh.
So we've incorporated that into the play, and so it is my story, and what prompted me to write it was some political things that happened in Pennsylvania around the Catholic Church, and politicians in Pennsylvania that have spent 2 decades blocking justice in the courts for victims.
It's such a, I want to say, a beautiful way of writing a memoir. You know, like, because, you know, not we all, but a lot of people want to share their memoir, but when it's a memoir that has pain in it, you know, it's hard to share, and kudos to you for doing that, but then you're acting it out. How is it like to, like, relive those moments?
It is an act of joy now. I love the theater. I love acting. And so, you know, there's something that happens. There's alchemy that happens. I mean, you know this when you write. You take something and you run it through that process, and it comes out different. There's something therapeutic about putting pen to paper, and then I think it even goes another step when you take that and bring it to the stage and perform it in front of people under lights. Yeah. And
you know, if you're doing it, whether you're doing an autobiographical, you know, show, or, you know, you're doing a show with an important topic, you get audiences to not only resonate with your story, but it helps them to resonate even with their own lives.
Yeah.
And whether it's happened to them or in their community, you know, and it's a really great way to bring education, you know, and open. I mean, did you think I'm doing this for that reason?
No.
Were you doing it to heal yourself?
No, I was actually doing it more, I guess, for a political reason. Like I was full of rage at what was going on. It's a deeper topic to get into about how the Catholic Church lobbied politicians in Pennsylvania to block this legislation, and I had written a couple op-eds about it, and in 2021 it looked like the legislation was going to pass. Now it's passed in a bunch of different states, and based on what happened in Pennsylvania, and then it didn't, over some ridiculous sort of political theater, and I was like, I don't know what else to do. These op-eds are great, but they don't feel like it's enough. Let me see if I can create
Well, your voice
show.
is being heard.
Yes, it doesn't.
What, 75 theaters or something that you've been in? I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there.
I think maybe 10 or 11, but
So as a solo artist, and you're writing your show, and I say solo, I know you had some collaboration in there, but let's talk a little bit about how we market the show. We talked a little bit about how you got it started, but you're going to LA, you're going to Washington, you're going to Ireland. Do you have a PR company? Do you make the phone calls to book? Do they reach out to you?
It's a great question. It's anything and everything. So I'll get some emails where people are like, can you bring the show to Chicago? Or a friend on Facebook will see it and be like, hey, this looks great. Can you bring it here? And I'll end up saying, who do you know at theaters?
Right.
And so my wife Melanie and I, who's a wonderful writer.
Melanie's a writer also?
Yeah,
oh, nice.
yeah. And
what does she write?
She writes memoir.
Books?
Fiction.
Wait, I want to have her on the show.
Yeah. She would love to come on.
All right,
sure.
Melanie, you're invited.
She's a teacher at Pioneer Valley Writers Workshop and a member of Straw Dog Writers Guild, who was pivotal in this show.
I've had a few of the Straw Dog writers on here, and some of them have taught at my writers conference I have in November. Yeah.
So we have created a nonprofit called Unreconciled Project, which is partly to produce the show, to fundraise, to bring it to these places. So it's a lot, particularly a show about clergy, a solo show about clergy abuse is not an easy
topic to sell everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of, if you don't have an in at the theater, you're usually going to get, oh, good luck with that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find different ways, because part of what has happened organically over these 2 years is in the talkbacks after the shows, people want to talk.
Yeah.
They tend to stay, and they've got stories that they want to tell, and so we're committed to providing that forum.
I love that.
Where we go, and so it's been a whole mix of things. Some theaters have known me, and they're like, come do it.
Yeah.
And we do a 50-50 split where we bring the show, they bring the infrastructure of the space. A theater in Pittsburgh saw the video and was like, come be in our season. So that's a little bit of a different thing. They pay me as an actor, and we get royalties as a playwright, and
that's
they produce
awesome.
the whole thing.
Wow.
So it's a mixed bag of how it gets done. But we just recently, Unreconciled Project, just recently had our first hire. A part-time associate producer who was the stage manager in Pittsburgh, Claire Durr, and she is wonderful. So she's going to help me do some of these phone calls and reaching out to the theaters and seeing if we can get booked.
Like as a writer, we write, but then we forget that we have to market. You have to be able to do it all.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're really, you can, and word of mouth is huge. I mean, especially when you're doing any kind of show, or even when you're trying to do a book, it's a matter of reaching out to someone and not just saying, oh, come see my show, let me hang this poster up in every library and every coffee shop. People can see them, but they need to know the why you want them to come see it, and that's the personal connection of all the marketing that you have to do outside of all the time that you're memorizing your script and writing. Do you still rewrite anything, or is your script done and final now?
I don't think it's ever, now it's tweaks.
Okay.
But,
do you tweak it for certain audiences or certain town? Yeah. I like when writers and actors can do that. Say you're in New York and you use New York instead of talking about Philadelphia, or something like that.
Yeah, it'll always stay in Philadelphia, but we did it. I did it for 50 kids that I went to. They're not kids anymore. Went to grade school with, and there's a part where I'm like, you guys know where Havertown, Pennsylvania is? Well, they all know where Havertown, Pennsylvania is. So, you start messing with the audience.
What's it like to do it in front of your peers?
That was a wild and wonderful experience.
I'm sure it was very welcoming, but it's got to be
Yeah.
a little like, these guys know some of my story already.
Yeah, they know the people in the video. They know everybody that I'm talking about and all the references.
So you do a lot of Facebook posting with it,
Uh-huh.
a lot of social media posting, because obviously we have to market that way. You do like little trailers.
Yes,
and
try to.
Just trying to get out there. When you send it to theaters, do you send them the whole script, like the whole video, or the whole script? If you're
sort of depends what they ask for. Usually, there's an initial contact with somebody trying to introduce the show, what we've done, where we've been.
Get them to come see you somewhere.
That would be that's ideal.
Yeah, I'm always like, come see it here, and then let's bring it there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's hard to get a film quality of theater
100%. Yeah, I know.
With an audience and all that, it's hard.
How about, I want to talk about so when you're going from place to place, what's your set like? Let's talk about the set of a solo artist.
Yeah, this will be a short conversation. Yeah. I showed up at the Majestic on Monday with a side table and a chair, and it was loaded. So I have a table, a chair, a bottle of water, and an envelope, and that's the whole set.
That's the whole set.
Yeah.
That's it. And you're just on the stage for the 80 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like such a brilliant part of the solo show, because, you see this stage, and a lot of times when you go to a show, the setting gets you in the mood for what you're doing. And you are taking people on this trip through the verbal storytelling of setting the scene and setting the character, and allowing people to see you dressed as a priest when you're not dressed as a priest.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because you're not changing the costumes.
Right, no.
I mean, I have seen some solo shows where, they're actually putting the costumes on and things, but you're not doing that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a gift in itself, to be able to get your audience to use their imagination.
Yeah, I mean,
in your show.
I hope that's what's happening.
100% it's happening. 100%. And changing the hats that you wear in a show, like every time I've seen a solo show and like your show, just watching the facial features change, I mean, that's the gift of being an actor. But like, how did you distinguish, like, do you do blocking on stage to know, like, okay, now it's time for me to play this character and I'm going to have this look, or, have the hunchback or whatever?
Yeah, those are all worked out in rehearsal, and yeah.
Your director helps you with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So who's your director again?
James Barry was the first, and now it's Geraldine Hughes.
Okay.
She came on last year. And we'll go in and we'll look at stuff, we'll run it, we'll try and deepen things, see where we can, I think as an actor, particularly when you're performing your own material, I was probably going very fast. And
speaking
fast. Changes fast, and
I can see myself doing that.
Yeah,
because I can be a fast talker.
I didn't trust it. I was like, I don't know. You asked what the first performance was like. It was like getting on a freight train, and then you were at the station. I was like, I don't know what just happened.
I've heard Ken Harris has said that too. Like he will just go on stage, perform, and then he's like, I don't even remember doing what I did.
Yeah,
it's like you have this out of body experience and you're on autopilot.
And I think this is where like a sports analogy is a good one, when they say the game slows down.
Yeah.
So, that first one is like a rookie being thrown into the NFL, and you're like, I don't know, but I need a director to be like, you've got us here, so you can take your time.
Yeah.
Don't rush this. And then I trust them, so I'll start to trust myself.
So you said you use some of the clips from The Passion in the show. So do you have a screen on the show?
Yeah, so pretty much everywhere we've gone so far, they've got a projector and a screen.
I would say, do you have to bring that stuff, or the theater is always providing that?
Yeah, so far everyone's had it. It seems like it's become normal to have it, so that's good.
And do you give the theater a list of, what you need to see if they have those things?
The projector, the screen.
I mean, you're bringing your chair every time, or are they providing you a chair? You know what I mean? Like, are you traveling with your chair and your table?
Not to Los Angeles.
Right.
If we can drive, I'll bring a chair and table, but if we can't, we just use whatever's there.
I can see them driving, and then they stop at, diner for breakfast and be like, you know what, instead of paying, why don't we do this show?
Yeah. We get a coffee for the chair.
Here, I got a chair in the car. Let me pull up and let me do this show for you. That would be hilarious. So for people who are looking to do a solo show, whether to write their memoir, they got this idea and they're like, this would be great to be on a stage. What kind of advice do you give them? Sit in your basement 3 hours every morning.
I mean, you don't have to do exactly that, but I do think creating a bunch of material, knowing that it's going to be messy, knowing that things are going to get cut, but don't edit the generative phase. Yeah, just get it all there. And then this is something that I learned a lot on this go round was the structure is important. I think I used to, so the first solo show I did, I didn't really pay attention to structure, and this time it kind of got hammered into me. I took a workshop online about solo
doing the arc of the show, making sure
arc.
You build it up.
Yes, what is your climax? Is everything in service of that? So getting really clear on structure after you generate the material.
Okay. And what's the hardest part about doing a solo show?
I think it is for me, it's the producing part of it. Okay. Like when we click over into, okay, now it's time to go into the theater and do tech, and I start to relax a little bit. I'm oppressed by emails and phone calls and like trying to drum up the next thing.
Right, the business end of it.
The business end of it. It's all good. It has to be done. It is not my sweet spot.
And your favorite part? Obviously, I'm going to know this now that you just said as soon as I walk into the theater.
Well, I mean, there's nothing like the feeling of because really in a solo show, the other scene partner is the audience. And when you feel like you're on a loop with the audience, I mean, this is true of any show, any acting.
Yeah, when you have their attention.
Yeah, if you're on the loop with your scene partner or the audience, and you can just feel sort of the thickness in the air, and time does a weird bendy thing.
Yeah.
That when that hits, there's nothing like it.
Well, this has all been really great information and great advice, and it's so exciting to see how big this show is getting.
Thanks.
I mean, you have a lot of traction, and I just congratulate you on that, and I want to thank you for coming in on the show.
Thank you for having me and for what you do for writers.
Jay Sefton, and he, has written some plays and solo plays and screenplays, and where can they find more information about you? Like, how can they track you down and see more of your work or find out where you're going to be?
You can go to unreconciledtheplay.com, and that will have where we're going, upcoming shows. You can sign up for our mailing list, so you'll get an email once a month or something like that. So yeah, unreconciledtheplay.com.
Nice. Okay, well, we're going to put that in the links right there.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. And I want to thank you, my audience in Studio 954, for making this show possible and tuning in every week to learn more about writing and learn about what people are writing, why they're writing it, and like I said earlier, why you should be writing your story too. So this is the time in the program where I'm going to give you that writing prompt. So when the show ends, I want you to set your timer for, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Today is an easy one because today I want you to actually develop a schedule of when you're going to sit down at the page. Even if you're going to stare at that blank page for an hour, sit down. I want you to look at your schedule and figure out when you can actually do that 2 or 3 days a week. Do you need to get up at 4 in the morning so that you have extra time in your day? Do you have more energy in the evening? Give yourself a schedule. Try it for 2 weeks. And when you're sitting at that page, even if you just want to start writing, well, I'm sitting here at this page for the first time or the second time, and this is what I'm thinking. Just start getting that pen moving. So today's prompt is come up with your schedule. Find out when you can sit down for an hour or 2 or 3 days a week, and stick to that schedule for 2 weeks, okay? Thanks so much for tuning in to yWrite, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a great day. See you later.